I work the graveyard shift at a small town radio station. You've probably never heard of KBX 306. We're somewhere along a desert highway where the signal cuts in and out depending on how close you are to the mountains. It's just me here most nights. 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. 4 hours of music, static silence, and the occasional drunk trucker who thinks they're the next Johnny Cash. People always assume it's creepy being alone in a building like this. Flickering lights, long empty hallways, that weird hum from gear that's probably older than I am, but honestly, I like it. No traffic, no boss breathing down my neck. Just a chair that squeaks too loud and a hot mic waiting for me to say something people aren't supposed to hear. I've been doing this for a few years now. Same shift, same playlist rotation. I preload most of the music, old classic rock, some ambient stuff for the insomniacs. And every night from 2:0 to 3:0 a.m., we run a segment called Nightline. Open call hour. Anyone can dial in. We rarely get serious callers. Usually it's someone bored off their ass stuck at a Circle K or a guy halfway across the state asking if we take song requests for bands that haven't existed since 97. Once, a kid tried to get me to summon Bloody Mary on air. I told him I'd try if he could pronounce Candyman backwards in one breath. It's low-effort radio, really. Comfort noise for night shift workers, truckers passing through, and people who still haven't figured out how to sleep without the background hum of a stranger's voice. So I never thought much about who's really listening, or if they're listening only to the music, but when Line 2 lit up last week, that all started to change. It was a Wednesday night when it happened, or technically Thursday morning, 2:13 a.m. exactly. I remember because the clock on the board sticks sometimes, and I just tapped it to confirm the digits weren't frozen again. I just finished playing a long ambient track, some spacey instrumental thing that always makes the room feel colder than it is when I saw Line 2 flicker on, and that stopped me cold. See, Line 2 isn't connected, we only use Line 1 for Nightline. The second line's been dead since I started. Our old engineer pulled the jack years ago during a budget cut. Nobody bothered to fix it, it just sat there with the red light gray and dusty, more decorative than functional, until now. I stared at it for a few seconds thinking it was a glitch in the panel, but the button glowed solid red, then it pulsed once, slowly, like someone was waiting. Against my better judgment, I hit the speaker toggle. The silence on the other end was heavy, not the quiet hum you get from an open call, but thick, like the line had sunk underwater. Then, a woman's voice came through, soft and strangely even-toned. You have to stop him. That was all she said at first. There was a short delay, then she added, please. He's listening right now. I leaned toward the mic, trying to keep my voice steady, partly playing it off for the air. Kind of vague for a request, ma'am. You mind being a little more specific? No answer. I repeated the question twice. On the third try, her voice broke back in. He knows I called. He always knows. It wasn't frantic, like someone in danger. That's what threw me. It was clinical, measured, like she was reading from something, or like she'd said it before, maybe too many times. I cut the mic feed and switched to a hold tone, but the line blinked out before I could press it. Dead. No hang-up click. Just gone. I stared at the board for what felt like a long time after that. At first, I assumed it was a prank. A weird one, sure, but this is late-night radio. We get our fair share of dramatic insomniacs. Hell, sometimes I think half the country goes crazy around 2 a.m. But then I checked the call log, just out of curiosity. Nothing. It didn't say unknown number or no ID. The field where the number should have been was just empty. Like, the board didn't register a call at all. I thought about calling Paul, the station tech, but it felt dumb to wake someone up over a ghost light. Instead, I queued the next track, sat back in my chair, and tried to laugh it off, but all I could think was, if line 2 isn't connected, who just called me? I tried to ignore it that night, after the last caller or whatever that was. I wrapped up the shift, signed off, and did a quick sweep of the station out of habit. Lights off, doors locked, gear powered down. I didn't fear another voice for the rest of the night, but the silence felt off, like the air had gained weight since the call ended. I chalked it up to being tired and told myself I'd laugh about it tomorrow. Still, I left the lobby light on for the first time in months. The next night, around 1:45, I came in early. Sat down at the booth, ran the usual levels test, cracked open an energy drink, all the boring routine stuff. But something kept chewing at the back of my brain, that voice, it had sounded so intentional. Not like a prank. More like it was meant for someone specific. Me, maybe. Or whoever happened to pick up. At 2:04 a.m., while a track cycled, I opened up the workstation and started digging through the buffer logs. The entire Nightline segment gets saved as a rolling file, low quality, mostly just backup, but good enough to catch strange calls if we ever need to report them. Sure enough, despite line 2 being disconnected, there was a segment captured during that time slot. titled automatically, internal record temp 213A, MP3I, throw on my headphones, scrubbed through static, and found the moment the woman's voice came through. You have to stop him. Please. He's listening right now. Still gave me a chill. But then, about 3 seconds in, right after her first sentence, I heard something new. At first it just sounded like breathing, but it wasn't coming from her side. It was under her voice, buried in the track, like a second signal mixed beneath hers. I boosted the gain a little, adjusted the frequencies, and there it was again. The same words. Repeated. Low. Slurred. Delayed. My voice? Maybe. But warped. Like it was trying to match her, syllable by syllable. The creepiest part, it lagged her by about a half beat. Like an echo chasing her through the dark. I assumed it was artifacting from equipment interference. But when I checked the feed logs, nothing else had been recorded. No secondary source. No gain spikes. No evidence of signal doubling or software glitches. It shouldn't have happened, and yet something else spoke during that call. I sat back, pulled the headphones off, and stared at the waveform on screen like it might explain itself. That was when I noticed something else. The playback file iInternal record temp 213A MP3 had no metadata. No duration marker, no size indicator. Not even a timestamp, just a blank file name sitting in the archive like a placeholder for something that didn't exist. Except it did. I heard it. The next night I arrived early. Earlier than usual, I told myself I was just being extra cautious, making sure the boards were working, double checking the phones, updating the queue list, professional stuff. In reality, I couldn't stop thinking about that voice and the echo, whatever it was under her words, it had crawled under my skin and stayed there. I kept telling myself it was just a glitch, a bad recording. Software corruption? It had to be. But deep down, I didn't believe that. At 2:13 a.m., down to the second line 2 lit up again. The light didn't blink. It glowed. Solid red. Like it had been waiting. My heart actually jumped when I saw it. I stared for a second, hand hovering over the button, and then stupidly picked up same soft dead air silence on the other end. Then, the woman. He's getting closer now, she said. Pause. You have to play it again. That same voice, serene and hollow, like she was reading instructions off a fading script. No emotion, no stutter. I should have asked her what she meant. Should have told her to leave us alone, but I didn't say anything. Play the record, she said. You still have it. Bottom shelf. White sleeve. I swear I froze. My eyes went straight to the cabinet behind me. I hadn't touched the vinyl shelf in over a year. We don't really run analog anymore, but tucked in the back, just where she said, was an old white sleeve. Unlabeled, no sticker. Just plain matte cardboard. Inside was a 12-inch black record. No branding, no title. But I recognized that it was a weird experimental track I'd saved from a college friend years ago, some ambient noise piece he made for a sound design course. Eerie hums, reverse background chatter, unintelligible frequencies. I'd always meant to throw it out, but never got around to it. I only played it once. And never mentioned it on air. How the hell did she know about it? Hands shaking, I queued it up on the vinyl deck and let it play. It cracked, hissed, and moaned, just like I remembered. But right near the end, under the static, I swear I heard her whisper, again so faint, it almost felt imagined. You're starting to hear him too, aren't you? After that night, something shifted. It wasn't a sudden dramatic change. No doors slamming or lights flickering. Just little things. Things that don't make sense on paper but still feel wrong when you're alone in a room full of blinking lights and dead air. It started with the static. Most people don't think about it, but there's a rhythm to radio static if you listen closely enough. A kind of noisy hum you tune out after a while. But now, it had a pulse. Like someone breathing. I first noticed it during a dead air buffer between two tracks. There was no sound cue, no mic open, no incoming call. And yet, I heard it faint, staggered inhaling like someone hyperventilating 2 inches from a microphone. Then it stopped, mid-breath. I sat there for a minute just staring at the waveform on screen. There was a rise in levels, enough to trigger a monitoring spike. But no source input, no mic activation, nothing. I reset the system,